Hi everybody, welcome back to Balance Basketball Academy, and today we got another full film breakdown of a game, and the last one was on Kobe's 81-point game, and today we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark and her win over LSU in the Elite Eight in last year's March Madness. So, as you can tell, the background has been changed for this video, okay? Westbrook is not gone forever, guys. But we are going to talk about Caitlin Clark today, because she's kind of taking the basketball world by storm. Both men's and women's. She is being talked about right now, and for good reason. She's incredibly fun to watch, and I wanted to break down her game in a small sample size. With this game right here, I think that this shows a lot of her strengths, a couple of her weaknesses, and stuff like that. So, for those of you who are new, my name is Jordan. I was a former high school basketball player turned college basketball player, like Caitlin Clark used to be, so we have that in common at least. Now turned trainer. So today I'm going to take a look at some of the things that she did at the college level at least, and maybe in the future we'll take a look at a WNBA game. But I got my notes, and I got the game pulled up right here, so let's get into it. Alright, so we're going to keep this game muted for the most part. Again, I don't want to deal with too many copyright issues. I want to break down this game as best I can. Be transformative, of course, but I don't want to run into major issues. So a couple things to break down for those who have not seen Caitlin Clark play basketball before. She was the women's leading scorer in all of NCAA, and this was her last season playing college basketball with Iowa. She's a point guard, about 6 feet tall, and yeah, again, this game goes down as probably one of the best performances of her very young career so far, and definitely of her collegiate career. So we're going to take a look at that real quick. Unlike the Kobe game, we're going to break down not only her scoring, but we're also going to break down some of her passing, because she's a very talented passer. For those of you who are still watching her games with the Indiana Fever, she is incredibly talented when it comes to passing the basketball. So unlike Kobe's 81, where it was a little bit more, I'm going to put my head down and score the ball, she does that here as well, but there's also, again, some interesting stuff for aspiring point guards at all levels to look at. Clark has a high ball screen pick and roll, and off of that, she's shooting a three. That high ball screen pick and roll is really, really powerful because she's able to make the three ball from that distance. Hailey Van Lith is going to be guarding her for most of this game, unfortunately, bless her heart. And she's going to get caught up in the screen. So you can see that Angel Reese is actually guarding the roll. They're not blitzing the screen. Hailey goes underneath the screen, and it ends up being an easy bucket. A point guard is incredibly valuable when they're able to make a shot off of a ball screen. And we got a replay of that play right here. Taking a look at that. Again, not a lot of space. Her hand is in the vicinity, but it doesn't really matter because, again, Caitlin Clark doesn't need a lot of space to get a shot off. Okay, the Indiana Fever poster fell down, so I could fight to hang it back up, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm sorry, guys, okay? It was there for the intro. Russell Westbrook is back. Okay, so right here we're going to talk a little bit about change of speed. I am a big proponent of change of speed. I love it when players, I don't know why my shoulders are doing a little jig. I love it when players are doing change of speed, and honestly, it's really hard for the defense to guard. And here's an example of that right here. We got a hesitation move. Let's see if you can spot it. So, Caitlin Clark in the half court. Hesitation. Fights past. Easy layup. It's a really simple move. Again, a lot of times we see highlights from players that are, really fancy and awesome, and they're doing all these cool crossovers and stuff, but the bulk of the points that we're going to see from star players, Caitlin Clark included, are going to be easy buckets like this, because she just sees a small opening and decides to use it. Look at her offhand. Let me back up a little bit. Let's look at her offhand, right here. Right there. Look at that. That is Caitlin swiping backwards, fighting that hand from reaching in and stealing the ball. Great. But also keeping the defender off of her. And eventually, defender just completely falls behind. And that is how you do it right there. That's a sneaky little thing. Refs don't see it. They don't call that kind of thing. Right? Unless you're smacking somebody in the face, they're not going to see it. That's a really cool thing right there from Caitlin Clark. We'll take a look at it in full speed, but you can see it right here. Just making sure that offhand is active, keeping the defender back, and beats her to the basket. Here's her with an off-ball look right here. She gets that screen, decides to go under it, gets the defender off of her, forces the switch. Kate Martin is really, really good at off-ball movement and cutting, and part of that I think is definitely encouraged by her ability to play with Caitlin Clark, somebody who will find her. Clark makes a driving move. Haley is ball watching. You can see that right here. She's not looking at her defender, or excuse me, her player. Clark gets the ball. She's ball watching, split second too late, and that's all Martin needs to get in for an easy 2. Really good heads-up play from Kate Martin, but also, again, Clark realizing that there is an opening because that other defender is ball watching. So just honestly great 2-man game there. With Caitlin Clark and Iowa in general, they like to push the ball up the floor quite quickly. And you're going to notice that off the rebound, their first priority is to get in transition because they have such a great passer like Caitlin Clark who can help people up the floor. So you'll see certain players on this Iowa Hawkeyes team that are incredibly adamant about running up the floor as fast as they can because they know that their point guard will find them. It kind of just feeds on itself. So here we have a missed shot. Rebound, Clark outlets, gets that ball really, really quick right here. Right now we got a 4-on-3 situation, so it's not really advantageous, but Clark is still going to explore the options anyway. Worst case scenario, she pulls it back out, we set up, we get into our regular 5s offense. But in this case, we got Kate Martin cutting right behind Angel Reese. Angel Reese, ball watching. Boom, right there. She is not looking at the defenders. She's identifying where the ball is, even though the ball is already covered. And that's a big thing. Players rely on that. They just look, where's the ball? And they completely forget about everything else. Martin is on the back side, gets a really nice pass from Clark. I have no idea how Clark got that in there. We're going to take a look at that again. Really nice pass right through the defense. And yes, that's a missed shot. I'm still highlighting the missed shots. Why? Because, again, that's a good cut, and that's a good pass. Because a point guard isn't going to just look at it as a numbers game. Technically, they didn't have the advantage there. It was a 4-on-3 situation in which the defense had the advantage. But Caitlin Clark is really good at spotting ball watchers and is able to get the best out of that and get a player in a position where they can potentially score. Alright, that's just not very good defense. This poor girl was on her heels for most of it. She was pressing up top. You can see her, she's just stumbling backward. Clark doesn't even really make a very hard move. She just does a hard between, and the girl's like flailing backwards. That's when, as a defender, you need to kind of reset yourself and recenter yourself a little bit because, oh my gosh, like, she didn't even do anything. But okay, another high pick and roll. Another high pick and roll. That's what Iowa likes to run a lot at this phase of their, basketball program, especially when you have a player like Caitlin Clark. High pick and roll. First time that high pick and roll comes, she goes under. Clark is attacking. She's not stepping back. She's still at the logo, which she's made logo 3s before. We've all seen it. From a point guard perspective, early in the game, there's no reason to shoot a shot that's kind of ill-advised, regardless of what kind of player you may be. So, the player meets her under the screen. She gets a re-up, another screen right there. Because the player overcompensated, that screen's not really even needed. Clark has so much space and just pulls into a 3. So, first screen, player is running as fast as she can. She's stumbling again. She kind of like trips over her feet right here. Like, look at this right here. She just kind of like almost trips over herself. And Clark's like, okay, guess I'll make this. Easy 3 from her. Honestly, one of the easiest of the night. Just a completely straight on dribble 3. No step backs, none of that. On that screen, Reese is now 1 foot in the paint, 1 foot out. There's a second screen coming. This one is basically on the cusp of the 3-point line. She's just sitting here. And there's just nothing there. Like, she just doesn't even try. The initial coverage from LSU in this game looks like they're just going to try and let Caitlin Clark's defender just run under screens and try and keep up with her, and that's their plan on keeping her from shooting 3s. Not a great plan, but that's essentially what they do. So you're going to notice that the screener's defender is going to sit back for no particular reason for a large part of this game. This is a passing opportunity. We're going to go back to the screen coverage. Another high ball screen. Defender gets through. Angel Reese is sitting back. If you're LSU and Caitlin Clark's defender gets through the screen, you technically don't need to have the blitz. But if she doesn't get through the screen, you're kind of in a bit of a twist. It's going to be very difficult for you to be able to guard a three-point shot from Caitlin Clark. In this case, the help man comes over, and that leaves Kate Martin open on the outside. So the nearest man helps, which is great, but ends up in a decent three-point opportunity and an assist for Caitlin Clark. You can run fast breaks off of a make, and that's something that is incredibly off-putting for a team when they just make a shot and they're like, all right, let's run back on defense, da-da-da-da-da, and all of a sudden the other side's running a fast break on you. Normally fast breaks happen off of a miss, but Iowa is so elite, or was so elite, I have to say past tense because a lot of their players graduated. At this point in time, they were so elite at running fast breaks that they'd run it off of a make. This shot goes in, and Clark is already running to get into that outlet position. That's acknowledged. Boom. She's running up the floor. Like, it's not just, okay, pass it in, let's set up. Like, they know they have the advantage when they run fast breaks. So why not do it every single time, and then if it fails, you pull back? But why not just hit it every single time, especially when you have somebody who can see up the floor as well as Caitlin Clark? Clark finds the open man down the floor. The open man, person who's running, gets rewarded. Running in transition. And honestly, it's just easy because, again, LSU is thinking, all right, we're going to set up. By that point, the pass has already been made. Layup already has been scored. They're thinking that they got to set up, oh, this is my man, da-da-da-da-da. Nope. The possession is over. Now you're back on offense. This is a made shot. They're quick to get into the inbound. Clark is running up the floor. There's not a lot of pressing in this game, so in a press, obviously this changes, but LSU's just trying to get back. Clark realizes she has single coverage. What is she doing with that? Well, right now, they don't actually have the advantage, but as seen earlier, she had this defender on skates. The poor girl was stumbling to keep up with Caitlin Clark. So she's like, all right, maybe if I hit her with a couple of hard moves, I can get her off balance and I can get myself an open shot. She hits her with a behind and a step back. She doesn't get the defender on skates as much as she did last time, but she does give it a go. She gets a decent amount of space. She's fairly unbalanced. The shot goes in and out. You can't be too mad at it, but again, I understand why most coaches would look at that and say, it's only a good shot if you make it. Alright, so Caitlin is off the ball again. She gets an off-ball screen, is able to curl off that screen because the defender is behind her. You're going to notice, actually, Caitlin Clark doesn't like going up against Angel Reese very often because she frequently gets blocked by Angel Reese. And I think most people would feel the same way. Angel Reese is like 6'3", fairly athletic, and she has good timing. As of right now, Caitlin Clark does not really have a superb mid-range game. She doesn't feel super comfortable shooting floaters and shooting mid-range shots. She's really good at threes and layups, but she doesn't really float around that mid-range area when she comes off of a screen. So, when she falls into this area, this is a perfect zone for a floater. She's not going to really shoot a floater right out the get-go, though. She ends up turning it down, kind of throwing a pump fake, knowing that, ultimately that's the right shot, but she has no confidence in it, it doesn't go in, and, possession over. The low man always wins. And that's what Caitlin Clark does right here. She gets her defender standing straight up. There's a high ball screen coming. Caitlin Clark decides to reject it. All she has to do is lower that shoulder and use her arm to fend that defender off. Keep her at bay. And the defender can't get low enough quick enough, and ultimately ends up fouling, and can't get in front of Caitlin Clark. Little hesitation, just a hop, right there, boom. Uses that off arm, and easy move. Look at the level that she's at. She's lower, she stays low, and keeps at it, stays strong, finishes, and gets an and one. She's sweeping back with that off arm. You can see it. You can see it. She's really good at keeping that off arm active. Caitlin Clark is using that hesitation move a lot. It's a really simple move. A lot of people talk about how she razzle-dazzles people when it comes to going to the rim. But a lot of times she just wants to hesitate and just keep going right. You'll see that right here. She rejects the screen, hesitates, is staying low, active offhand. Active offhand. She's got an opening right here. We have talked about this before. She doesn't want to shoot that mid-range. She doesn't want to shoot the floater. It is there. There are players that are open here and here. But she doesn't want to shoot the shot. So ultimately she doesn't. She passes it. It gets picked off a little bit. That's fine. Swings the ball. That's a good shot. It just happened to miss. Overall, not a bad possession. Just, again, she's going to be so much better when she's able to hit that mid-range because it is open for her a lot, and it's going to make her very, very hard to guard. So, at this point, we hit this point in the Kobe video as well. She's kind of missed her last couple shots. She had a turnover a little bit before this. She's struggling, maybe, even. You know? Like, she's having kind of an okay game so far, but she's struggling a little bit, and Iowa is down. And I like to think that some of the best performances require players to push through adversity. Some of the best performances you'll ever see a player give. They don't normally actually do super good to start, but they pull through. They keep shooting. They keep trying to find passes. They keep trying to make plays. They keep hustling. And that's exactly what she's going to do here. But it's easy for you to see the ball not go in and think, well, it's not my day today. I'm going to stop shooting. That's not Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark doesn't stop shooting. Regardless of if she's 9 for 10 or 1 for 10. She's going to keep shooting because she trusts that shot and she knows that she's made those shots before. Yeah, I talked about a couple mid-range shots that she should have kept taking. She should have taken a mid-range, but she didn't. This one, the defense collapses pretty darn quick off of this double screen that she catches from. So she comes off of this double screen right here, and the defense, look at that. All eyes. Look at this magnetism she has. All eyes are on Caitlin Clark, and she has 3, maybe even 4 defenders in her immediate proximity. We got an open man in the corner. Clark sees her, and boom, this is really all it takes. And that's a wide open shot by college standards, by pretty much any standard right there. Sets, takes and makes it. We got another high pick and roll. Decent there. Clark has Haley Van Lith behind her. Cool. And it makes a nice pocket pass. That's the great play to make. There's just somebody she's missing in the corner. That's not on Caitlin Clark necessarily. If you got 3 people around you, you probably have some people that are open, at least in the corners. And almost makes that layup. Again, it happens so quickly, it's really easy to pause things and say, well, she should have made that, or she should have done this. But that gap may have only existed for a second, so that's one thing that frustrates me, is I will pause things and I will talk about reads that could have been made and where maybe should have been made, but they may only have been there for a split second, so I try to keep that in mind as well, because I find it immensely frustrating when you watch film and you're like, well, that was open for exactly 1 second, and there's no way that they could have done that. So in this case, not the end of the world there, but a nice pocket pass from Caitlin Clark off of the roll. One of the easiest shots you'll see her make all night. Caitlin Clark gets her feet set, right into it, straight up, straight down, good three-pointer in transition. Caitlin Clark will also run in transition, and her teammates were the ones who found her in that case, and great shot from her. Honestly, like one of the better shots she's going to shoot all night as far as challenge goes. Another semi-fast break. Caitlin Clark realizing that there's not actually a lot of advantage and ends up shooting a shot that I think is a little premature. She's shooting it from roughly the logo, if you were to draw a line from the logo, and it is contested. Not really a great shot. Everybody's back, and there's not really any advantages. This is kind of a rhythm 3, see if she can get something started. They're only down by 1, so it's not the end of the world, but I'd ultimately say that this isn't a good shot unless you make it. So this is another example of Caitlin Clark looking out for her post players. She does want to get the ball down low because it's going to make it that much harder for the defense to be able to guard her, if they have to also focus on players down low. And in this case, there's a really good post up here. So Angel Reese is on number 44. 44 gets excellent position. Look at that. That is prime real estate. I'm shaking my camera. I'm so sorry. That's prime real estate right there. Look at that. And she's got her, like, backing down. Like, Angel Reese is nearly under the basket. What is she going to do defensively? Nothing. They're looking for it. For some reason, the person with the ball is not passing it to her. As soon as Clark gets the ball, she's like, screw this. I'm going to pass it to her immediately. She does. And at that point, the position is no longer quite as strong as it used to be, so that pass was made as soon as Clark could have made it, but probably should have been made a little earlier. Ends up in a missed layup. But as far as post players go, that's an excellent post up. If you're a guard and you see somebody with that kind of position, as the post player, if they don't pass you the ball, you should have permission to slap the guard that does not pass you the ball, because that is just foul. Like, you have to give them the ball when they have that kind of position. That's just objectively the right move to make, and Caitlin Clark tries to straighten it out, but at that point, Reese is able to get alongside her and make that a little bit more of a contest. In another world, alternate universe, that probably would have gone in, and it's not a bad shot ultimately, but great post position right there. And Caitlin Clark does one of the things she does best, run the break. Number one thing you can do as a point guard, get to the middle of the floor. Why? It opens up your options. You can pass to the left, you can pass to the right. You can attack middle, you can attack left, you can attack right. Gives you options. If you have only one side, there's going to be a sideline that's blocking you. Caitlin Clark gets it right up the middle of the floor. Right now, it's a 3-on-3 break, so there's not really an advantage, but if she plays it correctly, which she does, you can still end up with a bucket, even though there's not a numbers advantage. Clark gets Haley going one way and goes the other. She gets around her. Haley decides to reach. Look at her hands right here. She decides to reach instead of actually playing good defense. That's a bummer. And Clark goes all the way around, gets in front of her, and the other defenders, by the time they realize Clark is deep into the paint, it's kind of too late. At that point, the only thing that you can really do is foul her, and you don't really want to do that because Caitlin Clark does make free throws. So, ultimately, again, really good play from Caitlin Clark. Let's say the defenders had caved in faster. You have open players in the corners. In that case, that's where the ball would go, but Clark realizes she has more than enough time to get to the rim, and she does. Layup. This is excellent two-man game right here. This is emblematic of a point guard and a post who trust each other and know how to move with each other on and off the ball. And we're going to take a look at this again because I really, really like this play a lot. Clark, another classic high pick and roll. Haley Van Lith is behind her. Clark now has a one-on-one scenario temporarily with a big. So her roll man is behind the play and her defender is behind the play. Clark doesn't realizes she doesn't really have an advantage. She's not going to pull into that floater. It might get blocked anyway, even if she was comfortable with that floater. Everybody's just too close. So she pulls back a little bit, trying to relieve that pressure. She does have a person open in the corner that she doesn't spot, but she's still trying to prod this pick and roll thing a little bit, and that's exactly what she does. But she does miss somebody in this corner here. Again, I know, pausing people at random moments, there's going to be points in time in which it looks like, oh, this was open and this was open and you should have done this, when really, this gap doesn't exist for very long. She catches up with her, but Caitlin Clark does something where she goes back and then she goes forward, changing that direction, making it more difficult on the defender. She gets by her with a little split right there, and the post player right here realizes, hey, there's 5 people all in the paint. Basically, right here. How about I move out a little bit? Goes to the open spot, finds an easy jump shot. That's a really, really good play, because post players who know how to get out of the way and get themselves into openings get good shots, and they also unclog the paint considerably. So either A, they're letting their point guard get a nice layup, or they're getting the ball passed to them because the point guard has everybody glommed onto them, and they get a shot that's open. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. And a post player who knows how to move off the ball properly, very, very valuable. Very valuable. She's wide open up top. She's comfortable shooting from this distance. Hand down, man down. That's it. Hand down was only down for a couple of seconds. Just Haley's hands were just not in the proximity of Clark while she's deciding to shoot this shot. She's like, I got a straight line. All I got to do is just shoot this thing. And she has a very quick release. Caitlin Clark has an incredibly quick release. And this is a good shot for her. It's not a good shot for most people, but it's a good shot for her. And she's starting to cook. This is just after half. She is going to start to cook in this game. And this is where it's going to get out of hand. You'll notice that she does her little hesitation right here, but the hesitation goes straight into a shot. So instead of the hesitation going into a drive, the hesitation is going into a shot. You can use a hesitation for multiple things. Take a look at this right here. I want you to look at Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, look at her little head tilt right here. Look at her right here. She looks up the floor before she even has the ball. She's looking up the floor before she even has the ball. She's calling for it. You can see her mouth move, but she's looking up the floor before she even has made contact with the basketball. As soon as she gets it, eyes right back up the floor. Dribbling. Yep, I'm going to do it. There's an opening. That's a pretty good play. That's an incredibly athletic contest right there from that LSU player. Caitlin Clark can't always factor that in right there, but again, she's looking up the floor before she even gets the ball. She's looking, hey, give me the ball. Boom. Going up the floor, getting that pass, and trying to reward the person who's running. Missed shot, ultimately, but good play. Iowa, again, making a transition off of a make. That's a made bucket from LSU. Clark is already running up the floor as she's catching this outlet. She realizes, hey, we got somebody going right up the middle right here. Kate Martin, thank you very much. Easy layup. Because again, made bucket right there. Just reset. Nope. We are running. Martin is busting her butt getting up the floor, and that's an easy bucket right there and a great find from Clark. That's rough, I guess. At this point, good coverage off the screen from Haley right there. She actually gets through and is able to make it difficult on Clark. We're still dealing with this big gap here. The roll defender is just not factored in. It's just no man's land for whoever's guarding Caitlin Clark here. She cuts off Caitlin Clark's right hand. That's exactly what you want to do. Except Caitlin Clark actually really likes stepping back left, and that's exactly what she does right here. It's one of the things is, we've talked about this a little bit before, right-handed players like to step back left because they can get their elbow aligned with the basket easier. Right-handed players don't like to step back right because, say the basket's over that way, you have to rotate to get your arm properly in the basket. If you step back left, you're already there. And that's one of the big things. People talk about Caitlin Clark's strengths a lot. She loves stepping back left. You don't let her do that. But she loves driving right. So what do you do? Well, ultimately, you just kind of have to pick your poison, and if she's going to hit a step back three, that's exactly what she's going to do. As soon as this ball comes off the rim, Caitlin Clark is turning her head. She's looking up immediately. What do I have here? What advantages do I have? She's analyzing the situation. She constantly does that. She's always looking up. It is a habit that is ingrained in her. She's already looking up the floor. Hey, you see that little head tilt? Look up the floor. Where is everybody at? Gets the ball. All right, she's still looking up the floor. Who do I have? Do I have Martin right here? Do I have her right here? Nope, not really. Okay, right now, what we got? Not really numbers, but somebody's coming at me. Oh, she reaches. You reach, I teach. She gets by her, lower than the defender. Easy layup. Here comes the double screen. Caitlin Clark gets some space. A step back. And Reese knows her mistake a little too late, unfortunately. This play is kind of one of the more iconic plays of this game. There's a couple. We'll get to the next one. We'll get to that one in a minute. Angel Reese has been consistently not having to deal with Caitlin Clark for most of this game. And now that she does, she has to play help defense. She doesn't fully commit to the threat that the three-point threat that Caitlin Clark actually is. Earlier in the game, Angel Reese did twist her ankle. It's quite possible that change of direction for her might be a little bit more difficult because of that ankle. She was hampered in this game. She didn't play as well as she normally does. And so Caitlin Clark, not necessarily like trying to make her twist her ankle again, but just realizes, hey, I don't have any gap here, or I don't have any space here when I'm driving. I'm going to step back. Reese doesn't come out enough on defense. That's a pretty decent gap. Even though Reese realizes, I need to get my hand up, she's about to shoot, you're too far away. It doesn't matter. And Clark hits that with ease, frankly. Alright, so this next play right here, I'm kind of wondering if it's really a good shot or not. Now, in this case, unlike her other pull-up fast break kind of three, she actually has a decent amount of space. She doesn't have a defender directly in front of her. So she's shooting this from the logo. We've seen her make those things before. She's kind of feeling it right now. She just hit that step back three in front of Angel Reese. Let's see if we can, get this going, get some heat. And she misses by a little bit. I would still argue this isn't a great shot. Sorry. You can say I'm wrong. You can say that I'm not as good as Caitlin Clark. Okay. Who is? But yeah, this isn't a great choice from her. It's one of those shots that if you make it, it's great, but if you don't, you can't really look at this and say it's wonderful. It's better than the other pull-up transition three she had, but only because there's not somebody directly in her face, but it's her attempting to get some heat and to get some momentum, and it doesn't really turn out the way she wants it to. We get a missed shot from Caitlin Clark, but I actually think this is quite a good drive from her. She realizes that her left side is being cut off, or excuse me, her right side's being cut off. She makes a crossover, and look at the defense's stance. Completely shutting down the right side, leaving that left side wide open. So Clark is like, well, I'm gonna take that. Clark has a decent amount of ambidexterity. She's able to dribble with both hands quite well. She just happens to miss this layup, frankly. Again, in an alternate universe, I could very well see this shot going in. She just happens to miss it. But this is the right read. That's my point. This is the right read, realizing, all right, well, if you're going to give me the left side, I'm going to take the left side. She gets lower than the defender, gets into the defender as well, and kind of ends up fading into a shot. She has a decent amount of space. It's just a little short. She just doesn't have quite enough lift. Not a bad shot. It's really not a bad shot from her. Overall, the defender's going to give you that. She makes good contact. if I were Caitlin Clark looking back on this game, I wouldn't look at that shot and be like, I made the wrong read. I'd just be like, I just missed it. That's all it is. So, yeah. Yeah, we're back to this again. So, Clark with a really good pass and cut realizes that the defender's overplaying her three-point shot and decides to cut backdoor. Really good cut. Nice pass right there. A lot of space in the middle, and Clark, again, is not really comfortable shooting that little midi yet. Ends up passing it off to a kind of open number 44. Kind of, but not really. The shot is there before the pass is, but that's what she feels comfortable with. She does end up getting fouled, so there are free throws involved. Great. Not a complete miss there, but ultimately, I'd love to see her be able to shoot a little floater off of that, because goodness, what is a defense going to do if she can make that shot on a consistent basis? We will get there, hopefully, in the future. High pick and roll, step back three. That one she just eased into. She really didn't even need to change pace too much for this. She's got that high pick and roll. Still, single, coverage, LSU, what are you doing? You have to blitz this girl and get the ball out of her hands. But again, the problem with blitzing is when somebody's a really good passer, they normally make the right pass out of the blitz. So you pick and choose, I guess. But Caitlin Clark, trying to get through the screen. She's trying to get through the screen as best she can. Haley Van Lith is, but it just doesn't really matter. Ultimately, Clark just has too much space. She really just eases into this shot. It just looks easy for her. Looks like she practices this on a daily basis, just for warm-up. And I bet you that's exactly what it is. For those of you who are weird about me talking about a thumb push, Caitlin Clark has a thumb push, and she's arguably one of the best shooters ever. You can have a thumb push and be a really good shooter. It's just technically not correct as far as shooting form goes by the book, but Again, you'll notice this. There's a really good angle of this right here. Because I'm not going to talk about this much, because that's not ultimately what this is about. I'm not here to break down her shot. I'm here to break down this game, right? But if you're looking at her shot right here, that left hand is very active, and that thumb is all the way over. So, yeah, just food for thought. Keep it in mind, I guess. Clark's being pressured up top, basically denied all the way to the half-court line. Gets a high pick and roll. She doesn't even need it, though. This is the famous shot. This is the famous shot. What do I do with that? Honestly, to be empathetic here, what do you do with this? She pressured her. Look at her. She's on her like white on rice. She is not letting go of this girl. She denies the ball all the way up until half court. Clark starts attacking. She's like, oh shoot, she's attacking. She pulls back, gets a little bit of space. And what do you do as a defender? She gives a contest. Clark makes the shot anyway. Clark had ultimate control over that entire possession. Because here's the thing, when a defender is guarding you super close, they're typically going to overcompensate for all of your moves. They're typically going to try to, beat you to the spot as fast as they can, and outrun you, and outdo this, and da-da-da-da-da, and they're a little less on balance, and because of that, a change of direction move, like that pullback right there, is really all you need to get space. And Clark can make those shots. That's a shot that's very makeable for Caitlin Clark, and if you're a defender in that case, all you can do is kind of shrug your shoulders and be like, well, I did my best, coach. What am I supposed to do? Oh, we finally get a blitz. We finally get a blitz. Alright, I just wanted to talk about this blitz real quick. Finally get, I think it's Flage Johnson on her, number 4 for LSU. She's actually very good. Really one of the most athletic players I've seen in quite some time. She's very athletic on the floor. Very good hustle player. I think she's still at LSU. I need to do better research with that. But basically, my point is, they switched defenders. We're not sticking Haley on Caitlin Clark anymore. Okay? We're going to try something else. And we're also going to try and blitz. So that's exactly what they try to do. Off of this high pick and roll, Angel Reese is like, okay, now I've been told to blitz. Aggressive blitz. Actually a pretty good blitz from Angel Reese. I knew she had it in her. Actually a really good blitz. Clark is now doubled. Reese runs back, actually covers the roll really well. Reese does a really good defensive job on this play right here. Shows and goes quite well. Makes that pass unavailable and forces the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands. That's exactly the goal of a blitz. They still score, so if you're LSU, you're kind of just like, well, what do we do with that? But at least it wasn't Caitlin Clark. Alright, so I think we're going to get another example of a blitz right here. There's going to be a high pick and roll, but it's not actually a high pick and roll. This is how you defeat a blitz. You change the outlook of your pick and roll. Instead of doing a direct high ball screen, you do a give and go. You do a handoff. Because now, the way you cover it looks a little different. It throws the defense off, especially if they're not used to blitzing, which they aren't because they haven't done this all game. Here's what we're going to look at. So look at this right here. Instead of, this is a good call. This is a really good call from the head coach of Iowa to beat that blitz by actually taking the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands and running a give and go. Clark gets the ball back. It's essentially a pick and roll because there's the roll right there. Caitlin Clark now has a 2-on-1 and it's a really good play. You get the same result from just changing the start, the way that the play is ran. But you get the same thing. It's just a give and roll. That's it. Very, very smart play right there. And honestly, that's basically how we're going to end it because that's basically what seals the game at that point. There's no coming back. Clark hits a couple of free throws to end the game. She ends up with 40 total points. She has a really, really excellent basketball game. And the big reason for that is her ability to read ball screens, to be able to make threes from basically anywhere on the floor, and her ability to look up in transition, which I think is incredibly valuable. Caitlin Clark is a really good point guard. A lot of people talk about her shooting ability, but she is also an excellent, excellent passer, and I hope that I was able to show that in this game as well. For those of you who want more breakdowns, let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you want to see, because I enjoy making these ultimately. I know that they don't do very well. The Kobe video didn't do all that well. This video, well, we'll see, but I really do like breaking things down this way because I think it's the best way to be able to improve your basketball IQ, is to be able to watch it and then go back and dissect each little moment and understand why this worked, why this didn't, what they should have done, so on and so forth. And this is the kind of thing you can do with your own film. You can do this with your own film, you can do this with other teams that you're scouting for, all kinds of things. And then you can do it with players that you adore watching and learn the stuff that they do, the little details that they do in order to improve your own game. I think that the head game is really overlooked in basketball, and my goal with this series is basically to just really make it very clear and break down all the nitty-gritty that these excellent ball players do at the highest of levels. So, anyway, for those of you who are new, subscribe, like, comment. For those of you who are less new, you can do any of those things except subscribe, because I'm assuming you already have subscribed. Thank you very much. And regardless, thank you guys for making it this far. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Goodbye.